Here to talk about growth strategies and how to optimize those at every stage of your company's development is Danny Rubenstein. Thank you.
Is Jeff still here? Yeah. So thank you, Jeff, for including and also curating this, because I think the way you guys organized this and sequenced it has been great, and hopefully you're all getting a lot out of the previous speakers. I'm here to talk about growth strategies, but really only one part of it, the people part of it. So it's a much bigger conversation, but in the time I have to focus on one area. I'm going to start with a little bit about me and try and keep that to a minimum. Then I'm going to ask a few questions because I want to kind of gauge the audience and tailor the body of this conversation to effectively, how do you identify the right kind of people in the right positions? When do you hire? When do you outsource? And all that has to go with building your teams. And that'll all fit into a bigger picture, which ties back to the way they choreograph this whole day, and it sets you up for the fundraising, which is going to follow after me. So all of this was thoughtfully designed. Green. So a little bit about me. I started my career in the food and beverage industry on this beach in 1985 with a high school friend when we started Naked Juice, selling carrot juice for $1 a glass on the beach. So any of you who thought, "Guy, am I too small? Is my idea too small?" No, it's not. You can do anything. Believe me, you can do anything. So I just listed a few of the companies that I've worked with as principally a strategic advisor after growing Naked and selling it to Chiquita Brands, and then moving on from there, I became a partner at Adwala, which moved me to Northern California. And these other brands are companies that I started with when they were very, very small, most of them, except for Gerber, of course, helping them develop strategies on how to innovate and grow and further their businesses along. So I've been in this business a long time, principally as a strategic advisor, helping people like you realize your vision, hold on to your equity, drive your own car, and take it where you want to go. So that's principally what I do. Now, very briefly, recently I was asked to join another organization, and it's not an incubator, although I really appreciate Shubhani's incubator program. We have a lot of respect for it. What I was asked to join is an organization called MISTA, which I'm just going to take a moment to describe because this is not about MISTA, this is about people and your companies, but I think it's relevant. So MISTA has been in stealth mode literally till tomorrow. Tomorrow is a global press release about MISTA. And this is, there's a lot more to it, but this is the platform of MISTA, which represents, you guys are there on the startups on the right side. It's a complete pie. Basically, all the verticals in the food industry come together with an ecosystem that sits on top of this, where startups like yourselves, if you chose to, could become members and have access to a phenomenal set of relationships that we bring to you. Plus, we have an optimization center where you can make food, which is what we're all about in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and we have funding sources. So we're not an incubator, we're not an accelerator, we consider ourselves an optimizer, so we take the best of each of those, and it's a membership program, and you're involved for a year, so you're not in and out, nothing wrong with that, but our model is different. You're with us for a while, we're with you for a while, and we help tie you in. So I'm happy to talk more about MISTA later, but again, I've been doing what I've been doing for 25 years, and they convinced me to do this because we want to provide an opportunity for startups like yourselves to have a platform to leverage large players. And just to give you, because it's coming out tomorrow, I can talk about it. On the CPG side, our founding partners and members are Danone and Mars as two examples. It's owned and run by Givaudan, which is the largest flavor and fragrance company in the world, a 250-year-old company. Ingredion's another. So we have these very, very large CPG and ingredient players, and they are fundamentally underwriting most of the costs. So if you guys are interested, we make it very affordable. But enough about that. So this slide is me wanting to know what the furniture in the room is. I want to ask a few questions so that the rest of this time can be best spent together. So I'm just going to ask for a couple quick raises of hands. How many companies are pre-revenue? Okay, because there's, you got to start somewhere. How many are, and without getting too specific, 0 to $1 million? Still in that very early, okay, a good chunk. And how about $1 million to $5 million? Whoops, $1 million to $5 million? Are those in there? And then there's those one don't want to raise their hands because we didn't get the whole room. All right, I'm saying that because how and when you staff is somewhat dependent on revenue, but not entirely. How about employees? How many are under 5 employees? The majority, which is to be expected. 5 to 10? A few? Anybody over 10 employees? A few of those too. All right, that's great. In terms of how you see yourselves, how many of you see yourselves as a sales and marketing organization with fundamentally supply chain and production outsourced? So sales and marketing principally, okay, that's a smaller number than I thought. How about those that have their own production, that actually have their own facilities? Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. And how about full vertical integration, like seed to sale kind of thing? Not to speak from another industry, but a couple. All right. Self-funded. How many of you are currently self-funded? No outside capital at all? About half. How many have angel, friends and family, maybe family office kind of level? About a third. And then obviously there's some people with some professional backing as well for any venture groups or smaller numbers, which makes sense because you're here for the boot camp. So, okay. So that right sizes it for me so I can focus on the next section. So setting yourself up to win and anticipating the transitions is where a lot of companies fail. They don't do this right. And so I have focused a lot of my practice on helping companies understand what they need at each stage and why, and preparing for that transition so that you're ready for it and you can elegantly scale into it. A lot of times people will not know what's next. They don't have people around them who can help advise them or coach them. So they are often understaffed, frankly, or underskilled sometimes. Sometimes you overstaff, but that's less often. So you're going to see how this kind of takes us through. And also I want to say, please interrupt at any time for any questions because I want to keep it in a real-time dynamic. Okay, so optimizing your organization at each stage. It sounds simple, but it's not as simple as it seems. At those that are starting, I met somebody today who's got a fresh soup company, and he's in San Diego, and he's starting small, and he wants to get it right before he goes any bigger. So his staffing needs are going to be very distinct and unique. He doesn't have his own distribution. He's outsourced that. He's outsourced his co-man for the manufacturing and supply chain, so he's a sales and marketing guy. Some people, if you're a little bit further along, you're going to have different staffing needs, and I'm going to get to that. And obviously, as you scale, you're going to need to expand that. And every time you add people, it's an exponential challenge to be able to manage the dynamics that go with that. In the beginning, you're probably all chief cook and bottle washers, but as you add people, you're going to need to decide, well, gee, what are your strengths and preferences? And I spend a lot of time with founder CEOs saying, what is it that you really, really enjoy? Because if you have to do too much of the other stuff, you're not going to enjoy your business anymore. So depending upon what you as founders and CEOs enjoy doing and what you think you're best at, obviously suggests what you're going to need to hire. And where that leads is, do you hire and take them internally, or do you outsource? And you've heard some great presentations today about people that you can outsource different functionality to, supply chain, package design. I have a client now where it's a man and woman, a husband and wife, and she has a lot of design and marketing background. So she is doing the packaging design. She's keeping it in-house. That's a little bit unusual, but it happens. A lot of times you are product-centric. Founders are often, almost always, somewhat product-centric, and you're generally good salespeople. You're generally not the best, I wouldn't say all, but as a broad stroke, most founders are not, don't enjoy or aren't the best on the finance and accounting side. They're not enjoying going through contracts and dealing with the legal side. They may or may not like operations. They may or may not like marketing. The reason why I put a lot of emphasis here is because you came into this doing it for a reason. Something inspired you. And what I have found time and time again is that the failure rate for startups is so often tied to you no longer doing what you'd love to do when you started. So I know I'm kind of driving this point extra hard, but if you start to find yourself unhappy, I had a client call me today, and it's again a different two people that are partners. One of them is so unhappy in the role that they've kind of grown into that we were like, I don't want to do this anymore, which is a hard conversation to have. So we've kind of reorganized and restructured so that that person could go back to what their passion is. So don't ever lose your passion, I guess is what I'm saying. This I'm going to dwell on for a little bit. This is a question that often comes up. When do I hire internally? When do I outsource? How do I hire internally? How do I outsource? And so I would suggest that you take the time to, either on your own or ideally with people who can advise you, define the roles really, really well. Go through that formal job description process. Go through that discipline of identifying the experience and the skills that you're looking for at each stage. You remember that at each stage. So for instance, I have a client right now that is a $2 million beverage company where we have an outsourced accounting manager, controller level person. They don't need that person full time. They do have a bookkeeper in-house. They've outsourced all the co-man. So that's one example of a kind of a blend. I have another company where they're R&D focused. So they're never going to outsource their R&D. A lot of food companies outsource your product development. They're never going to do that. So again, you as a founder, CEO, what do you love to do? And then keep that. And then this internal, external part, which roles, how much, and when, is also something that can hurt you on the financial side. And I know when, I think it's Nick's coming up to talk to you about raising capital, what investors really care about, almost, I wouldn't say universally, but pretty close, is they start with the team. How strong is the team? Can they take this company to the next level? Because people bet on people. So building the right team at the right stage not only helps you internally and cost-wise, you can manage internal or outsourced, but I would bet virtually everybody here is going to be looking for capital, if not now, continuously. And I don't need to drive this point because I think you're going to hear it again. You've got to have the right team. So I thought I saw a hand. Nope, okay. Again, the right tools and the right size. So I gave you this example of this controller and accounting manager, and some of you may not know exactly even what the difference is. And so they didn't need a CFO. They don't need somebody who's out there raising capital. They need somebody who's going to make sure the books work. They are a manufacturer, so they needed somebody who had manufacturing experience in the food industry, but they didn't need them full time. So there's a lot of wonderful resources, and I know that there's some people here, Force Brands and others, that provide that kind of service, where if you take the time and you do that upfront work, then you go and you look for that talent and bring them in, that's an investment that a lot of people don't make. And the other part I want to really emphasize here is your culture. There's not one way to be successful. Each of you have your own style, and I think you really, really need to honor your way of running your company and attract people where the chemistry is right. You don't want just people who are going to say yes, yes to whatever you have to say, but that you have a shared value set, that you have a shared worldview, that you care about the same things, that you believe in the same things. You heard from the woman, Zoe, who's talking about Chobani and what they're all about. Well, they're going to self-select. They're going to draw people to them that have that thing. As founder CEOs, be careful that you make sure that you don't only get the skill set and experience that you're looking for, but you also have the chemistry and the work ethic and the timing and all those elements that are unique to you, so that as you grow your organization, it can get diluted if you start to bring in people that are too different. And then I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to kind of open it for questions. In terms of fitting it together, you heard a lot of people this morning talk about different elements in the business, whether you're going to be on the operation side, and you heard Brandon talk about co-man and how important it is to do that. You may want to keep that, again, as an internal responsibility within your company for some reason, and all the supply chain that goes with that. The same thing with marketing. You may want to keep that or may not, but how you tie these together, and of course I'm keeping this at a summary level, but how you tie the different departments together and the systems and the infrastructure that you need to build at each stage in that company's growth is so critical. I'll give you an example. If you have a sales tool that helps you track your customers' orders, predict and track your customers' orders on a rolling weekly basis, for a rolling 8 to 12 week basis, which is a discipline that most small companies don't adhere to. If you were to do something like that, you could see where your volumes are coming from or not, by customer, by SKU. I mean, to take it all the way to that level. That will feed your supply chain and operations requirements. That will feed your cash flow requirements. And you really want to fit all of these pieces together. You need the right people in each job, but you need the right infrastructure and systems that it sits on in order for your business to function. So it sounds easy. It is not easy to do this. What you're embarking on, I think many of you have already found, isn't that easy, but it's worth it if you, and following this kind of approach will help you kind of make it a smoother ride. So as I was saying earlier, people bet on people, and you're going to be spending your hard-earned money hiring people, and I encourage you to hire slow and fire fast. Take your time. Make sure it's a fit. Go through a second interview. Have somebody else check it. Do all that you need to do. Make sure you can afford it. If for some reason it isn't working, my basic rule of thumb is don't go after the bad performer. Don't assume that they are doing a bad job. How well did you manage them? How well did you give them the resources that they need? Did you support them? I have this saying, shit rolls uphill, excuse my French, but basically go to the manager, go to the person above them and saying, how good are you at managing that employee, giving them what they need, setting them up to win? So there's this tendency to fire the wrong person, and I would suggest be careful, but if it's the wrong person, help them out the door. Maybe it's the best gift you could have ever given them. So just in closing, people bet on people. You're going to be hearing from Nick in a little bit about how to raise money, and I guarantee you that on top of the stuff that Bob Burke told you and everybody else has shared with you, you put all this together and you'll set yourself up to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Bob.
Make
Bob?
my way there. Okay.
Danny, I thought it might be helpful if you give some ranges of outsourced CFOs, operations, marketing, sales, so as people think about that.
That's great.
As an option. And I know it varies on time commitment, size, all that, but maybe some ballparks.
That's a super great question, Bob. Thanks. So what's common is to outsource finance and accounting at a higher level. You don't need a CFO. You do need some financial guidance, so you need to find that. On the accounting manager controller level, where you're making sure that everything's running smoothly, it's more than just paying the bills. In my experience, you can get that on an hourly basis, and it could be anywhere on the low end, sort of a $40 to $50 an hour range, to a high end $80 to $100 an hour range, depending what your needs are. If you manage them well, you get a lot of leverage on that spend. On the sales side, what Bob's talking about, and this is going to be painful for some of you to hear, but if you want a full-blown vice president of sales with lots of experience and Rolodex, that's a six-figure salary plus equity, plus bonus, plus you can really take that as far as you want. For startups, what I've used, if you have the budget and you want to do it that way, all the power to you. Oftentimes, what I've used is there's outsourced sales management organizations, which are an extension of your company. They don't only work for you, they work for others as well, but they limit themselves to how many clients they have, and they will be your market-facing representation. They'll manage the brokers for you. I love the UNFI Next piece. I thought those women did a fabulous job. That was not around for most of my career, and I think it's really, really smart that UNFI is doing that. They will help you there or at the higher level. That can range on a retainer plus basis, sort of a $6,000 to $8,000 a month-ish, plus a percentage once the volume grows. So that's the finance and accounting and sales piece. The marketing piece is usually outsourced, and that can be all over the board. And that can go from product specific to, if you really want to get your brand positioning right. You heard a wonderful presentation this morning. I completely agree with her. The most money you can spend is not spending wisely on your branding and packaging and positioning. Get that right. So that can range anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, depending what you need, to $100,000 to $200,000, depending on what you need. So get your scope clear and get your expectations right, and then you can, and then tap into NOSH and the people that are here, and there's a veritable plethora of resources available. And I'll make a little bit of a swing back to the, I lost my slides, so that's telling me something. That MISTA, as that example of what we're doing, is one of those ecosystems that is set up to provide you with access to all of those outsourced resources as well. So, yes,
Do we have one more question? If not, I have a question.
great.
So we talked at the very end about, you know, making those hard choices about if someone's the right fit. When you are a small brand and you can only hire 1 or 2 people, what should you kind of be prioritizing? We hear a lot about cultural fit. Or do you prioritize in sales that Rolodex or that amazing marketing experience? Is it about talent, or is it about, you know, this is a person that culturally fits with where I see my company going?
I'm not dodging it, but you need some of all of that. If your gut says no, stop. I mean, in the end, I don't care how experienced they are. I don't care what their Rolodex is. If you can't work with this person, if you don't want to be in the trenches, if you don't want to be there with them, don't hire them. That aside, I think that you need to right size it. So who has done what you're doing repeatedly before? Who has been to that next level that will help you reach forward? Hire people that are better than you at what they're good at, but not, most startups aren't going to pull somebody out of a PepsiCo because the cultural disconnect and the sort of way they see the world and the metrics don't match. So if you're a $0 to $1 million company and you're looking for a VP of sales, find somebody that's taken a company to 5 or 10 or 20. The people that start at 10 and go to 50, they're not a fit.
All right, great. Well, do we have any other questions? All right, I know you're going to be sticking around, right?
I'll be here through Saturday.
Awesome. You've got lots of time to mull over all of this and develop some questions. Thank you.